It upsets me that
I'm
you
on
watch
Moana right now. But I'm like, I think of them just again moving up into the like this. It's like I'm naturally doing this. Welcome to the Three Fates podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Deanne.
I'm Pam.
And I'm Meredith. Welcome.
Birth.
Ooh.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, got right to it.
Sorry.
Birth.
Life.
We're excited.
And death.
Birth is excited.
What are we talking about? What are we birthing for this episode today, guys? Gals?
Well, this will be episode 10, binary numbers.
Oh.
For Pam.
Loving the binary numbers. Got a 1 and a 0, and that means we have everything.
And that's why we're going to talk about love.
Because that is everything.
You know what? My daughter.
Stop it.
My daughter Juno, like that, what you said, when she signs her name, it's a 1 and a 0.
Really?
She tries to write her name, but it comes out as like a 1 and a 0. Sometimes it's a 0 and a 1. Sometimes it's a 1 and a 0. And they're not like, it's not like she's doing number 10. She doesn't know how to write numbers. She doesn't really know how to write yet. She's only 4.5. But when she's, drawing a picture, I'm like, Juno, put your name on there. And then she's like, okay. And it's like, we're always like, there's Juno, the 10 or the 1, the 0 and a 1. So
She knows.
She knows.
She knows codes.
She knows what's up. Anyways,
But yeah,
love.
love. Love is everything. Love is a binary number.
All you need is love.
Just ones and zeros.
Do, 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 do.
So, do we want to channel the energy of love? Like, what do you guys feel?
I think we'll get there too. And I think a little bit of dissection of love too. Like, what is it? I mean, even like hearing the word chemicals, because it's just chemicals.
Just neurotransmitters,
Just
just responding.
Yeah, just like chemical bonding to your kid when they're born.
I have no reference for that. I
Like
do love animals.
oxytocin?
Though.
Oxytocin bonding and like, all that. So there's like that place too where it's like, where primally like you're, like if you think just like primal energy and nothing like cosmic at all or frequency wise, like there is a chemical bonding, right? That happens with parents. Like where you have to like, you see your kid as the cutest so you don't kill it. You think about like back in the day, right? Or you have like, hormones that will make you like extra love your kid.
Well, so then it just opens up that conversation how every emotion can be converted into chemistry.
Literally. It is
the
chemical
body.
reactions in your body that's happening. So like down to that point of love, like the chemical reactions of all emotions that literally occur in your body that create a response and an experience of an emotion or an experience of love. And then up to like the realms of like the realms of just like love frequency and what that is. Like it's so interesting how like love will maybe be like a realm of love somewhere in some place, and it comes all the way down here. And so how we can experience love is like down to the biological level, literally chemical. It's wild.
And chemicals even further are just like elements broken down, right?
We're back down to
Yeah.
the cycle again.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Bonds.
So, like I'm sort of hearing that the angelic realm,
Told you. Told you they were coming.
they were coming to
It
get
came
us
for you
today.
yesterday too, or Thursday.
Yeah. It's like I'm hearing that the angelic realm, from creator energy or God energy or whatever, they get like the angelic realm puts it into a frequency that is accessible here, and then our body can translate that type of coding. So I look at it as like the angelic realm as the mister, like the misting of love, like here, earth, here's the love. Or do you want to pick it up? Do you want to take it? Do you want to utilize it? That maybe somebody else has it that gives it to you, that maybe you have a lack of or deficiency in. And so then all of a sudden your body responds with chemistry and so on and so forth. And you can then give it to somebody else.
Yeah, and you think that most people say, "Oh, I want more love in my life. I want to experience more love in my life in all forms, self-love, being loved by somebody else." And it's like I was like thinking about like some of Joe Dispenza's work and that movie that came out, was it early 2000s? Like What the Bleep Do We Know Anyways?
Oh, yeah.
What the bleep do we know? Yeah.
Yeah, not anyways. I just added that on there.
I like
And they speak a lot about like the chemical response of emotions and the addiction of certain emotions. And so if you think about like, okay, if we're having like an addiction to anger, maybe, and then how if those receptors are just busy with just anger, then how do we uptake chemicals that are more based on joy, based on like love bonding and that kind of thing? So it's like, how do we cultivate our biology to experience more love? It's like, okay, how do we cut the addiction to the emotions that are not serving love? I mean, not that anger doesn't serve love. Don't get me wrong. Sorry. Like the ones, if you want to feel more like less pathological anger and actually like release some of that off the receptors and experience other waves of emotions.
And then it ties into like neuroplasticity and neural pathways, right? When you get like some of those cycles and loops where you literally have to start to break down and allow yourself to experience new emotions and new pathways in new ways so that those like addiction patterns can actually start to like the receptors in your body will literally start to break down and create other ones so that you can create like new experiences, right? And new, it's just experiences. I feel like your brain needs that actual lived experience in order to be able to know what to do and to feed into it and to fill it, right? Yeah, which I think is that maybe that misting you were talking about a little bit.
So I think some people are like, oh, I'm really sad all the time and I have to wait for love to come find me so that I can be happy again. It's like, wait, what if we just like work on the addiction of sadness or depression first and like kind of like receive that or like fake it till you make it, like as in like the midbrain has no idea like what your imagination is not real. So what if we like you imagine a lot of love around you, imagine receiving love from the angelic realms and get misted by it, so that your receptors change and they like pick up off of the, they release those chemicals of like
The holding pattern
of like maybe depression or whatever it is. And it like, oh, I'm like receiving this mist of love from the angelic realm. I can feel it. I can see it. I'm sensing it because you're in your inner senses, which your brain has no clue if that's your reality, like your outward 3D reality or not. And then you're just like, okay, great. I'm going to just change the synapse over here. She's receiving a lot of love and here we go. And all of a sudden you're in bliss.
Yeah, and I keep hearing as we're talking, like just in the last little bit here, is that those receptors, they've got processing to do and everything over those other emotions that are taking up the space of maybe where love can come and diffuse, but there's like a deep permission that has to let go first to make space. So is that heart center?
Yeah, I felt that's like a lot of fear, hey? People have so much fear of actually
So there's
letting
like,
that in.
you can't actually, you could do so much work on the midbrain and you could start to conjure, but it still is having a hard time meeting at the cellular receptor or the hormonal receptor or whatever the finite point where love can meet it. It's like there's still a resistance of the letting go is what I'm hearing. The letting go of or maybe the acceptance, I'm not sure, but it does get sticky in there for sure. Do you see that part?
Totally can feel that.
Mare, what's your thoughts?
I'm just doing like work done right now. I'm having the whole back of my skull just opened up.
Oh, she's getting some neuroplasticity.
I can
changes.
feel myself being like,
She's being pulled out, guys.
You're getting some,
We're down a fate.
yeah.
We are down a fate. Houston,
There's no place for death
call
and
in
love.
for
No.
backup.
Well, what are you feeling? Are you
Just
feeling like
kidding.
synapses change right now? What are you noticing?
Pam and I going like off about like the fucking like cellular response.
You're like, what's happening? You're like, I don't know. The cell response is happening right now in her midbrain as Dee is talking.
I know.
In live action.
She's actually,
Meredith,
I think, going
tell
through
me
it.
all about it.
You're not wrong. What's
So what-
I'm
so-
experiencing on the heels of me saying it has to be experienced.
Yeah.
They took that real literal.
Real literal.
Real literal.
So
I
there's
am
something
just a
though that's
conduit.
resisting it.
Okay.
The letting, like, it doesn't want to
Okay,
let
that's
go.
why we're bringing in death.
Yeah.
So what are you feeling in your head right now?
I literally feel that the back of my skull has been opened up and there's like hands reaching in there.
Oh, I like it.
It's this one.
Oh,
It's the session. The oneness of the
Guys'
hemisphere.
fault.
Fuck. You know what? I had a thought. So I went to Pam I didn't go,
Start again.
My daughter had a session with Pam. And then it turned into, okay, Dee's half hour. And then it turned into Dee's two halves of her hemispheres of her brain, like sinking into one. So that it became like the back of my skull, that the cerebellum was opening into like a holding that looked like this. If those are watching, I'm kind of like spreading out my hands, almost like it would look like a butterfly. And
it was like holding the sphere
The
instead of the
sphere.
hemispheres, yeah.
And the sphere being kind of this element of like the oneness or the earth, even looking and appearing as a oneness, bridging corpus callosum, which is the center of the brain. And why does the center of the brain exist? It's split into polarities, or it's split into masculine and feminine, and which one do we favor rather than being both?
What are you feeling now?
I'm just feeling the stories. I'm feeling the stories of when like the earth was one.
Yeah, yeah.
And there was just, it came up in a conversation with a friend yesterday. So I feel like that was leading into this, just the idea of before all the continents split, right? That panacea.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And so there was like literally, it's just feeling like some old stories are coming forward now from the earth.
And so we were doing D session the other day, what was coming through with the idea of the two hemispheres of the brain, right? This masculine side and this feminine side. And that's what keeps, like, I think unconditional love out of the way, right? Like, it's like, so we were talking about, like, we can't really come out of duality in this plane. Like, we're going to have short and tall, we're going to have black and white, we're going to have cold and hot. But it's our judgment of it. And so it's like to conquer duality, or, you know, or to rise above duality is just to stop judging duality and coming into that place of unconditional love. We're not split anymore. We're okay with both sides. We're not judging hot or cold or tall or short or those things, in those places of judgment. And then that place, so that corpus callosum doesn't have to be just this little small bridge in the middle of the hemispheres. It can kind of dissolve, and these two spheres can join together, be that whole energy again, into one sphere. And in that place, that truly is, I think, what love frequency is, because we're not talking about like conditional love. We're talking about unconditional love. And unconditional love is when it's back in unity again. So that's really freaking special, I think, when we can start to see this unified field in our own minds.
And what there's two things going on. One, I'm like witnessing, it's kind of like the birth of a universe. So it's this idea of like, it looks very much like space and like stars and galaxies kind of like floating around, and they're kind of doing that entropy. And then, and also I remember in one of like my trainings, we did some gender studies. And so we think about even like the idea of like pronouns and gender identities and that whole masculine feminine conversation. And one of the concepts that was presented in this training was the idea of it instead being like a galaxy, right? So rather than gender being like a male or a female, or like masculine, feminine, and this like division, understanding that those were created for contrast and conflict and that duality that you're speaking of. Instead, it's like, can we experience it like a star system, right? So just like places where you go and experience different parts without this like fixed contrast. It's like, it's kind of like you wouldn't judge that star is better than that star. Does that make sense? It's just all things that you can experience. And you wouldn't say that like the right side of this galaxy is better than the left galaxy if you were just like looking at like a group of stars. Like if you were to look at that, and maybe that's a limited example, but it's just that idea of like that judgment piece, and that value attached to it doesn't exist there when you understand it. It's like, it's not, I understand that sometimes it's expressed in the same thing with sexuality as like a spectrum. It's not a spectrum. It's like, and this is how it was presented in this training, and it's coming up now. It's just like, it's literally like a whole like field. Does that make sense?
Totally. And it's bringing me thinking back to the biological level of this. It's like it's our brain or our mind or ego that has split these judgments. But even in our own body, like if you think about our cells becoming like a cardiac cell versus like a liver cell, there's no judgment there. The cardiac cells just knows I'm a cardiac cell and I'm happy doing work for the heart. I know who I am. I'm doing my job and I'm needed, and this is great. And hey, liver cell's over there. Liver cell knows what it's doing and it's happy doing that. There's no judgment of like, oh, that cell's better than that cell. It's like, no, I'm just doing liver stuff and you're doing heart stuff, and it's all great.
Yeah, and I think we were looking at the original purpose of the two halves of the brain. The reason why it was created in man was an aspect of fragmentation. Like it was purposely done that way.
Yeah, because it's like our body's not even doing. Our body's not in judgment of what cell's what cell. But
right.
Our brain.
But our brain is because they're like they knew that the powerhouse was there.
And that's the only organ that's split like this.
Exactly. Yeah. And so it was. And so they like what I'm hearing is that there is the opportunity to bridge through that corpus callosum, through that meridian GV20, through a lot of midbrain or things that run up to the center and the top of your head, there's access to etherically repair it, but it is the foundation of the start of a fragmentation in the body, which, is just really interesting to observe. I never would have looked at it that way. And then if all brains, your head brain, your heart, and even your enteric brain, if everything is going to mirror each other's energy, yes, there's no judgment, but there is fragmentation. And I think then our world created safety patterns around that. So which fragmentation is it safer to be in? And maybe at one point, Lemuria, it was safer to be in our feminine, and then it wasn't. So let's go into the Atlantis, let's go into the masculine. And then even to this day, I would say we're more or less masculine dominant operated. And with, trying to bring in divine feminine back in to the placement of creating some safety again with it. So yeah, I'm just spewing at this point, more information, not necessarily making a point, just more information of what I remember. Now it's like recall of in our session, but even just, exemplifying
We needed a
that it was
masculine, feminine
purposefully
energy in your
done.
free session too.
What's that?
We needed a masculine and a feminine
Yeah.
energy for that session too.
Yeah.
Actually.
Yeah.
It's interesting. What's your head doing now, Mare?
It's like, it's got like a piercing through on this side, and it's starting to feel like pressure, and it's starting to like expand a bit out. There's pressure on the front here, and then pressure out the back, almost like I'm getting the visual of like an arrow going through. And this is maybe when like a personal bias is coming in. So I'm just trying to separate the personal bias of like the idea of like divine masculine and divine feminine being like corrupted in the concepts of it, where we've attached like there, and it's a question of attachment. And that was like before we started talking, it was like, where did your love attach? Like why do we judge the way we love? And then where is your attachment? And so this attachment into, as we're seeing, like, I know we hear a lot of talk about like divine feminine rising, and in many ways it's like a balancing energy that's coming up, but it's like, it's getting away from like the extreme of that. Like it feels like it's a headache in my head of like extreme masculine, extreme feminism is not the point. It's not actually balancing. It's more again into that, like, just like it fragmented. Okay, so why do things fragment? They can fragment also so they can be put back together better. It's not so we can put them back the same way. Right. And so this idea of being asked to be put back together in a way that's more of that unity, corpus callosum, that I can feel in my brain, like it looks like the butterfly.
Can I pull that arrow out of your head?
Well, let's see, who shot it? I love a story. Where's it come from? Pam just likes to do it.
Cupid.
I know.
Came from Cupid.
Is it Cupid?
I was
Cupid
just
does
gonna
like
say
to
the
shoot
exact
me
same
sometimes.
thing. I saw Cupid as well. I was like, it's Cupid. Cute little Cupid.
Okay, they do show up.
You know what I'm also hearing is that it's
Is love coming for me, guys?
Yeah.
You got shot, baby.
You're targeted.
Right in the brain.
Right in the brain. And it's going from your masculine side to your feminine side of your brain.
Okay.
Okay, fine. Maybe I won't pull it out right away.
Yeah, can we just chill?
I just want to do it.
She gets really excited about pulling shit out.
I do.
She's like, I ripped her throat. I'm like, so aggressive. Just
ripped it out and gave you a new one.
Can you just take me a beat here?
So I just ripped your throat, and that's consent. I just did it.
You just did it and ripped it out. Okay.
But the new one's better. I promise.
Yeah, you're just slamming that new one. Like, okay. Tease me a little bit. Love me. Warm me up. Warm me up before you rip
If you
it.
take it out, make sure you fill it back up.
Okay.
I had to. You were opening it up. You
I
were
know.
I don't
opening it
even know
up.
what you're talking about.
Okay, wait, dirty for a second.
I don't feel very. I have an arrow in my head.
Okay, Cupid. Okay, this is an interesting
Well,
thing.
so
You
I'm
did
also
ask, like,
hearing
love.
that maybe it's okay that the humanness in us and our human selves put it back together how it feels. Like you're right. Like we don't need to call in the big guns, like the angelics or the galactic energy. Where I'm almost feeling like it just the human puts it back together.
Well,
right?
I'm also like, why did Cupid just put an arrow in your head? Like arrow, but it's like Eros. Oh, interesting. Oof.
Is that like a Greek mythology or something?
It's love.
Yeah.
Eros.
I did not know.
But it's like, okay,
God of
Eros.
Greek god of love.
Oh.
right?
Okay.
Eros.
You called them love, you guys. I'm just a
I
fucking
know, no, but
roadmap for all
but
the
what it-
expressions
is
here.
Pam started love.
Have your way with me.
I love
Pam's
arrows.
fault.
I do. But if is Cupid kind of showing up as in like, do we have to like pull out the arrow of like this like romanticized love and like get real, like the whole like fairy tale of like freaking Cupid just like putting a arrow in your head and now it's done.
I feel really stupid right now. I feel like I'm 2 seconds away from being cross-eyed.
Let me
So
just
I'm
pull-
like,
see, how
the
is this
answer's not in my head. The answer's not in my head. I was like, should I move to my
head
heart?
is scrambled with an arrow. She can drop to your head or
Drop to your heart. You can't. I actually see Robin coming up and
What's
actually pulling this
happening?
arrow out. Can we do this?
Robin.
when all three fates are tapping out. We need Robin.
Honestly, I feel like this arrow doesn't feel good. I know it's from Cupid, but it feels very like
It does
Like,
feel aggressive.
feels aggressive.
You know what? Can I say what my first thought was? That does feel like that you're bringing a past life or past something that you've experienced that is important for the information of the session.
Okay. See? Story.
yeah.
So there is a story.
Before
in
you
it-
give me a lobotomy.
Have you guys seen Pretty Things? I think that's what it's called, Pretty Things, where she jumps off a cliff or something, and then this man finds her, and she has a baby in her belly, and so they take the brain of the baby and put it in her head so she can survive.
Oh my God.
And then it's all about her. So this is what's springing
Please
up
no.
for
No
me.
to that. No,
Yeah,
thank you.
no, thank you.
I don't want
It's
to
an
baby
interesting
brain
show.
put into my head.
Okay.
It does sound interesting.
Can we just pull it out and talk about the story afterwards? Okay, fine.
Oh,
What is happening?
she's obsessed with pulling things out.
Pimple poppers.
Oh. Can I tell you, despite the fact that I'm a healthcare professional, I cannot handle any sort of like that. Those words.
Okay, this is
I
what
can do a lot of body fluids. I've literally cleaned up punamis, and if you don't know what that is, you will know. If you're a nurse, every nurse out there will know exactly what I'm talking about. It gets you say that like pimple. Oh,
It is pretty gross. It's gross.
that's
It's very
so gross.
So I have, okay,
can't
so if
handle it.
I was to observe this, I saw like in that time and space, past life, whatever we want to call it, the arrow did come out, but it's like it broke off. Like there's still like a chunk that won't come out. Like it's on this side in the front. So where it got pulled out, it was left behind like in there.
That's why you don't just pull it out, Pam.
Fine. You're
So there, I started to look at what does this look like to pull it out. It came out quite easily, but not the end part. The end part's left behind.
So it feels like
The message is still in there, like the arrow part, the
Sounds like
anchor.
There's an energy of also like, so if Cupid brings love, true love, all the things that we know of Cupid, it's like there is maybe a past life energy here where you haven't quite let go of a past life true love. So I'm going back to our session when you went to Andromeda.
Okay.
How's that feel?
I'm suspicious, so we're probably going the right way. My primary defense mechanism is suspicion.
It's like, this is right. We're right on
I don't
track.
want to go there, but I guess we will.
Can I share a little bit?
Yeah, of course.
There was a little session a while ago for Meredith that she traveled. I helped her travel back to her. What do you want to call it? A home? What do you want to call it? Like star place in the stars that she felt comfortable in and hasn't been for a long time, and probably started her soul journey on this. And that's the star system. And we were there, and she was reunited with very profound love. And it was like really strong and really potent and quite emotional. And that's just kind of I'm just remembering that love, and I'm remembering this like Cupid energy in your brain here. And I know that in your lifetime now, you are in curiosity of finding love and that as well. So I'm curious about if there is like an expired attachment.
Can I share one more bout of information that's coming in, and then you can decide on there, or not decide, but see what the information lands. As a lot of souls in Andromeda have a lot of twin soul energy, which means that half of their soul will always sort of live there or stay there, and they usually present as they want to come in as twins in this life, but the opportunity doesn't present that way. So it can be like one soul kind of that splits, or sometimes two souls. So you always have a soul, and it can feel very much like the love of your life. So it's not necessarily an actual love, but it's like really like a part, so much a part of you, and they stay there. And sometimes they can come, even walk into your life here, and you can walk into their life over there. So some days it can feel like literally you're on another planet, and like a part of your soul, but not really you, has come in. Like it's like a twin exchange of etherical. So I find a lot of that in Andromeda souls, just FYI. So I'm just curious if this is an actual separate, completely separate, like quote unquote love interest or love lover or or is this a piece of you?
It just feels like a never forget. That's what the arrow feels like when you said it. It just says like never forget. And it's like a death, like I witness this part of me or this aspect, like it feels into that wolf. Like I had a story where it's like a wolf, and like my partner, this wolf died, and it feels like maybe now it's showing me that it was like an arrow through the head kind of thing. And so there's that piece there. So I'm holding that arrowhead being like never forget is the energy that's asking. And I'm curious why that's coming up in today's session too, just in the terms of like, if I'm holding that for like collective or for this podcast, like what is this never forget energy in the expression of love or in the context of love?
Because that's what we saw. That's the Andromeda love you were seeing, hey, because that was where the wolf was. So it's like, I remember talking to a client this week too, and we're talking about like how we don't really have to hold on to things in our mind to remember. Like it's actually, the wisdom is not in our head, the wisdom is in our heart.
But this is in her head.
That's what I'm
the
saying.
problem.
Exactly. So it's like, so you don't actually need the arrowhead to actually, with when the energy's still in the body or in the mind, then we're actually not letting go of the emotional standpoint, the charge of the memory, the emotional aspect of the memory. So we can't actually move it from wisdom into wisdom, because our body and our mind are still having a very much of an experience with it still. We're like, we're still in it, and our mind doesn't know that it's actually over.
That's how trauma lives in the body, hey?
Yeah.
Too,
It
like in
looks
the
like an
brain, like
invasion.
trauma will, and they literally have studies for that now that have confirmed that. Like if you have like a lived experience of trauma that hasn't been processed, it lives as in your brain as like a current threat and a current stressor. And so it's very much active. It literally isn't stored in the part of your brain which is associated with memory and stuff. And so I often, now I'm just thinking about love being traumatic for people, right? And like our first, like in our expressions of love, right? And so much of it is learning how to love ourselves, learning how to love another, learning how to do that, and curious to see what, like these trauma stories or these old stories, how they're still active and informing us. And I would say that's a lot of relationship work too, right? And with anything, with ourselves, with each other.
So it's like when I go back to that original piece of the cells where I'm like, oh, something's not letting go, to allow the like that love energy to permeate that cell or wherever, it's that this would be that piece. So it creates like this like talked about one of my last sessions, like invasion energy, or it's just the trauma of the arrow that's left behind, but it's like a constant stimulus up in this brain. So your head brain's trying to understand the Cupid love arrow, but it needs to be down in the heart center.
Yeah. And the heart's never going to forget, more so, even more than the brain is never going to forget. Like your heart's the energy of your heart, the energy of your spirit and your soul is going to be carried with you for lifetime after lifetime. Like it's just even more ingrained, but it doesn't have to be emotionally charged. It's not trauma based.
Yeah.
And you're holding that, and you never forget, and you hold the wisdom of that love, the lessons of it. And it's just like so tenderly held like a rose in that space.
You know what other part of the story I'm seeing now is that, Meredith, it feels like you've been in and on earth so much and so long, so you've stayed here. You're like, I really want to stay here. This other counterpart, this love aspect, or this whatever you want to call it, twin soul, separate soul, whatever, they're like, come back here, Mare. Come back to be with us. And you're like, come to earth. Like someone's trying to compromise.
Yeah. So it's conditional versus,
That's so interesting, because I removed a lot of stuff this week about conditioned love upon myself. Has been like an active energy of removing all the ways, and this was mirrored in how I was brought up as well as experience society as like a big person, is like that very much like love was conditional, right? Like love is conditioned on a part of me changing myself to look a certain way. Love is conditional on me making a certain amount of money. Love is conditional on how I caregive, right? My value is as a caregiver. All of these ways in which like sex is not okay if you're a bigger person, right? You need to like perform and look. And as a woman, if I find like my partners need to be blah, blah, blah. And so it's all feels like all these conditioned ways is what's being highlighted here. Like in this human life as well as that feels very true as well. Right. So I'm curious to see why that conditioned love is existing also between like myself and this Andromeda aspect and twin flame aspect, and curious why it's coming up now.
We're talking about love. This is probably maybe the biggest love of your soul experience with this other wolf.
Which is myself. The twin flame is just me.
And so when we talk about
The greatest love story of all is the one with yourself.
It is. And about the biggest marriage, like the marriage that I love the most is the one within your own self, like your masculine, feminine energy. I've got a wedding ring. Hey, did I ever tell you guys that?
What?
I have a wedding ring to myself.
I feel like I know this.
Yeah.
Yeah. This doesn't sound new, but I forgot about
It was
this.
a year, like many years ago.
Yeah,
I had a
I
White Duck
remember this.
session, and we were doing this kind of
yeah.
work where we were really bringing unity in my system from the masculine, feminine aspect, and it was like an inner marriage that was so unified that there was almost no masculine, feminine left. And then I like literally bought myself a wedding ring. So I was like, this is the marriage that every human being needs, regardless if you're married externally or not. Like this inner union, and it's like, are you married to that other part of yourself? Is that part with you, or is it separated? What were you gonna say?
I'm burping just because we're shifting energy and working. But my other thought is, does it feel, just to check in, Mare, on your end, this tethering between the other wolf, the other energy, this love, does it need to pivot and change? Like, does there need to be freedom from it to refine each other? Like, does it feel like it's an old cording that needs to go? Or does it feel like you need to work with the tension? Because I feel like there is a tension there, like it's a pulling. Like you're essentially, think of the two of you in just energy having ropes tied to each other. One's trying to go this way, one's going this way, and there's tension, like you're playing a tug of war. So, is there that there needs to be a scene element and that's just the observation? Or do you feel like we need to cut in order to rediscover what feels right for you?
The first thing that came out was like, what are we both looking at? Because when you gave me that visual, it's like we're both like looking at something that is obviously very important to each part of ourselves. And so like the gaze is looking away and the other gaze is looking the other way. And, we're just like pulling. So I'm curious, what are we looking at?
Do you see it? Feel? I know, but do you see and feel?
I want you to tell me now.
Oh, sorry. I should point first.
I know what it is. The right answer
So
is.
again,
Can you give me the right answer, Mare?
yours is literally come to earth. Come this way. Come this way. We can be together over here. I want to stay. I'm really I'm tied here. And this energy is like, no, Andromeda, come over here. Come be here. You guys are trying to go to literally separate locations. It's it feels like a location type of energy, or where you're both grounded. And it could be that it's more or less the refusal or the rebuttal of the energy in which Earth holds that this character doesn't want to come and be involved with, and vice versa.
That's the thing. So like
there is a divide again.
And if one is like, no, my perspective or my gaze is the one that feels good to me, and vice versa, then it's like, then you have to, that is that place of unconditional love where we let go, so we can, both parts of the system can just be where they're meant to be.
And then it makes me think even of like Earth and duality. How do two things exist? To just bring it back to our original theme.
How do two things exist and come together?
How do two things exist and do that?
So this is again back to even talking about duality. We can't take duality away. We're going to have this or that all the time.
Yeah.
But so are you judging the separation as being separate, or understanding that there's no such thing as separation anyways? So both energies can be where they want to be, and there is no separation. It's one sphere, it's one universe, it's one energy, we're one quantum web. So where's the judgment of separation in the first place?
And it's a made up construct.
Completely. It's very much in the aspect of duality where we think it's separate. That's the actual problem. Boom. Mic drop. I'm done.
She's exhausted. Give her a cigarette.
Shot of tequila.
Thank you.
Yeah. It's shifted. Like the arrow's gone and like that, the thing is gone. Because it's like that coming into...
I felt the full universe come into your body energy. That, like, you
I feel
know,
quite expensive.
wasn't just this one, or we have to be that, and I'm only this or that. It's like, as soon as you said, like, the whole universe, I saw then the whole universe come in and around you guys to create slack, essentially, right? That there's a restful energy when we are the whole.
Yeah, and as long as you're part of this universe together, you're not separate. You're right here where you can feel each other all the time. It's beautiful. That is like that weaving energy of love that weaves our whole universal system together. That it's in bonded. Doesn't matter where you are. That fabric.
There's like a differentiation asking to be expressed too now between like tension and the idea of contrast and conflict, and understand like we are sometimes understanding those as all the same things. They're just as like a stressor, and like sometimes depending on how we deal with stress, we attach things to it, we walk away from it, we shut down, we dissociate, we do all these things. But there's difference between tension, there's difference between just a contrast of like night and day where they both have a place, and conflict, which is a form of contrast. But there's like a lot more, like this is like actively happening as I'm talking, but I can just feel like this part where this arrow came out is like folding over and like coming under, and it's like literally restructuring into more of like that, almost like a yin and yang kind of like energy, but it's still differentiated, but very much like together.
Yeah, I think that's the whole thing, that we're not going to separate.
Yeah.
Make white and black gray.
Yeah, that came through as one of my first things whenever it was just like, people like, it's not going to be muddied into nothingness.
No.
It gets this beautiful differentiation where like for me, like the dark and the light just like crystalline down into this beautiful coexisting like depth, right?
And what's really cool about, as I'm feeling it land, I think a little bit more landing in your heart right now as we're speaking.
Yeah, I can feel all the energies come down.
Right, and the heart, out of all the chakras, is the only one that's yin and yang. It's not there. Like it's balance. It's the ultimate balancer, which again, heart chakra, of course, is all themed in love. So I was speaking about how love is the ultimate balancer of the yin and the yang. That it's holding space for both, with no judgment. It's so balanced, and that is so cool, so cool. So in love.
I just saw that the chakra balance too, where like your bottoms, kind of very opposite to me, your bottom 3 chakras being so developed, and the heart giving permission to extend it into your uppers too, versus mine so flip-flopped. And yours is probably just perfect, Pam.
Yeah, right.
Sitting in the middle. Like, Pam's like, I'm fully in operation.
Yeah, right. I'm sitting in the middle so I can get like a little bit of both. And this reminds me of even like, if you talk about Gene Key 2029, I think it is, and it goes from the shadow of half-heartedness to the gift of commitment, and then into the acidic state or the lightened state of devotion. And so when I was reading this key, it was talking a lot about like, what is true commitment? And I think in our world, we've been told that commitment, if you're married, is till you die. Like, a divorce is a failure in love, or whatever this is. And it's like, as we're contemplating the key, I was like, no, commitment is this place where, you're in something until the moment it's done. Like if that's a day or a lifetime or anything in between. And so when we speak about this, like a place of, like that's a true commitment of your own path and your energy, what we're supposed to be doing. We're not judging ends or beginnings. We're just kind of in this flow, and we're not like holding on constrictive energy on something that was meant to die a long time ago, but we don't know how to let go. We haven't given ourselves permission to let go, because society says you're going to be a divorcee, and that's frowned upon. You're going to be, whatever they think about that. So it's just interesting as we're speaking about this conversation about like in this energy for Meredith, even realizing that even if she's here on Earth and her counterpart Love is in Andromeda, that they're not separate, that they've been able to like let each other go in love, in deep love for each other. That it's like, we're going to hold each other back if we don't actually go into true commitment of what each counterpart energies were we're supposed to be. And it's not out of anger or like hate or anything that we're actually going to decide to, I live here, you live there. It's actually out of devotion, which is the Siddhic state of expression, that we're actually going to choose this separation. Not this. That's the thing. It's not separation. That's just the perceived shadow side of it. And we actually come into like the enlightened place of like so devoted to love, unconditionally devoted to love, that you're following the energy for the highest good of all counterparts. And that's really what we rise into, versus what we've been told what commitment really is. Jinky 29, go read it.
It's beautiful.
Thanks. I have it twice in my profile. Twice. There's like in my Venus sequence, which is all about love. So this is a big part for me, is to
You need some of this?
come out of my
You need some of
half-heartedness.
this coherence.
Yeah, right. Give me some of this. But no, it's been a good thing to contemplate. Devotion. Anyways.
I like it. I kind of see, just as you were processing Gene Key 29 in the teaching aspect too, I was looking at that for Meredith and this other counterpart of having like these catch-up sessions, instead of having that tension of looking the opposite way in this push, or the tension, or what we called that contrast, is this maybe more flexibility of this bungee cord of like gathering of beautiful information and sending off deeper into your lives, wherever you are, journeys, and coming back together with more information to share to each other. Like there's more that you can give, because then you're not stuck in a holding tank. So I also see this really reflecting, Meredith, in like the ability for you to transcend here, to go deeper here into your next phase too, without feeling like you're supposed to pull back or you're stuck, like kind of feeling like something's holding for you to notice, because there could be more wisdom and information that you can use for everything you have moving forward too.
It's interesting because I just did a breathwork container a few months ago, and one of the evenings we worked on picking your values, right? And and it tends to be that we get our values confused. We think the reality is like we probably actually only have one or two values, and I think it ties into like gene keys and all that. So we might value many things in terms of what we think is the most important. We probably only have one or two, or challenging yourself to bring it down to one or two. And of course, whenever you hold spaces, you also benefit from the wisdom that you're sharing, because this is like, the type of thing that you can keep coming back to. And it was love. Mine was love. And so it feels like this is an invitation into like a deeper understanding and a deeper expression of what does love mean, and what does love look like. And and I know in terms of like, and we just talked our last episode about money and business, and on like even like my body physicality and all that, it's like this whole invitation into like deeper love and a deeper understanding of what that means and what that can look like. And often love is letting go, and one of my big gene keys is 55, right, which is freedom. And so I feel a lot of freedom in this session today, and a lot of freedom of like, there is like a bit of grief in there, there's a bit of fear in there, there's a bit of like, and I'm just watching that, just like feeling that shift away. It's predominantly in my stomach, right, and a bit in my head. And so I'm just, as I'm processing this as we're chatting, but I'm just acknowledging that it's not like we just yet. There's like there's some shedding that's happening as I'm naming this as well as some fear of that, like what does that look like, and so then inviting in trust to that, but a newer expression of what does love look like. But it's a felt thing for me right now, and I feel a lot of freedom in it.
Yeah,
Thanks for
it's
saying
like a permission.
that. Yeah, that it's like when we even have a release and an energy that like lets go, and you're feeling good and free in it, that there is still that piece that's uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's wildly uncomfortable.
Yeah, and so that's a really great thing, I think, for people to hear, is like that it is a transition still, and you still have to shed away the.
It's not mean it's wrong. It just means that all those things that were present, holding that tension, fear, scarcity, loneliness. Like, what if I let this go, I'm going to lose my love, right? I'm going to lose, what will I lose? It's so much of what our fear based on is like this fear of loss, right? And instead of invitation into the energy of love is always expansive, right? It's never constrictive. And so allowing that even more, like, feels like I can hold more now, right? And so that next iteration is like, how much more love can I show and express? And I know from experience that doesn't have a limitation on what it may look like. It may not look like an Instagram story, right? Like, love for me, a lot of my deepest love has come through death. And so holding that now, right, when I felt the most love, when I felt the most connected, when I felt the most like helpless and grief and fear and like alive in many ways is when I've been in the presence of death, right? And either like losing a cow, like a little baby calf that taught me so much, right? And animals, and have been a big teacher in that. But there's never been ever a question of the amount of love that was also present during those times. And so I'm just feeling that as well too, as naming, because this is a death process for me as well, right? So just naming that, like, yeah, they're both there. And it doesn't mean that it's the wrong choice. It just means it's just giving it time and space to shift a little bit in this place. Well, thank you for witnessing that, ladies.
And like and how quick it was too.
Yeah.
Like giving time and space, but it's like you just said, like, you can already in these like minutes that we've done this whole work in, literally minutes, it's you already feel like you can hold a bigger space.
Yeah.
Like, that is profound.
Yeah. It's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That love isn't constricting, it's expansive.
Yeah. And I would say my lived human experience of love has been constrictive, right? Has been conditioned, has been like very much conditional. And so understanding that, I think that I'm not alone in that experience of feeling that love is conditional, right? Is a human in this life. So getting curious about where that does feel conditioned in you. And also I would say that, like, I've had a lot of experiences like this is, I don't want to underplay how big this feels to me, because it is, and it will continue in the next few days. I'm going to check in with these gals in terms of aftercare.
Yeah.
Because I can already feel that I'll be a little bit shaky about it, and I want to be super transparent about that, even though it's like holding more. It's like almost like new legs. And so when you're like, you know, your newborn baby, and I'm thinking I'm in like herd animals right now, like they can walk within like minutes and stuff like that, but there's still vulnerability
Yeah.
there.
You're our little Bambi.
I just a little Bambi.
Yeah.
Just a little baby.
Or like
This new one.
picking up a heavier weight, your arms are gonna be a little wobbly for a minute.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's cool.
Well, and I think, but isn't that also unconditional, to
Yeah.
be gentle on yourself?
Yeah.
To not, you know, in your shift, be like, here I am, and I'm going to persevere and be in the masculine and aggressive, but just to allow it to unfold and be gentle and curious and unconditional to self.
Yeah. That's really cool. It's quite soft and floaty now. Yeah.
Good.
Any other insights?
No, I love when the imagery doesn't fail us.
Yeah.
For me, anyways, or like,
We both
there's
saw
the-
Cupid.
I know, that was weird. I was like, this doesn't ever happen. Cupid.
Curious.
Curious Cupid.
That's where it gets to be fun. I literally did feel like I was going to go cross-eyed, though. I was like, wow, there's literally something in my brain. Oh.
Also, quick question.
Yeah.
Coming up. What, as kids, when we're still like in a, like, you know, let's say like younger than 7, when our brain's still like in like more of an alpha or theta brain wavelength, we're kind of more in that place of creativity, and, you know, what at that part of your life when that was really open and playful, what was the thing that brought you the most love then? What did you feel? How did you feel love as kids? Like little children.
I thought you were looking at me so intensely.
I don't know.
Gosh. I mean, I have this like reoccurring memory because like my mom, I was so attached to my mom. Like my mom was my person. But when I would snuggle into her chest, and maybe it would be like at a dinner party or something like that. It was like, I think this one image was a family gathering in down at the coast. And I'd be like, of course I need my mom. So I'd cuddle in on her lap and I'd place my head on her chest and kind of close my eyes. But I loved listening to her talk, like it reverberate in her like heart, like right in that chest and that heart center. And like there was something so comforting. And I think it's just maybe because it's the remembrance of being in the womb. Typical birth answer over here. But it's like she didn't have to say anything to me. It wasn't just about her and I just was there. It was just the company of that bubble, the voice, the chest, all the internal sounds of her body. Isn't that weird?
No, I'm the exact same way.
Really?
Yeah, that's my same answer.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, I loved it. I loved being like close and just kind of not even saying anything. It wasn't even about like being talked to.
No,
I
yeah.
just wanted to sit and like be held while life was going on around me. And I'm just kind of like, oh, cool. Like she's talking, she's doing all these things, and my mom's blah blah blah. But I'm basically, I don't really care what she's doing as long as I'm like held in her arms and like my head's on her chest. And my grandma too, my maternal grandma.
Yeah.
Same thing. If I was just being cuddled by them as they're going about their day, that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The importance of that.
Yeah. So touch, I guess.
Yeah. But for me, I guess also the audibility of her voice and the beating of the heart. Yeah, because it was so clear. So something about, you're held, but also the sound connection, I guess, for me too. She's coming up empty. She's probably still.
No,
in
I
her
was like in
processing.
nature. Like it's like I just like I loved my animals. I had like little chickens. And those are like my fond memories of like connecting with like the spirits and magic of like Earth.
Well,
And
it's so sentient.
yeah, like it's more of like a feeling of like, and I was lucky enough to grow up on like a little hobby farm where like we were allowed to have animals and things like that, and just being outside and talking to flowers and like fairies and that kind of stuff. I know that my mom loved me and my dad. I was really close to my dad right away. So but that feels more of like an attachment energy right now than like the love energy that you're talking about in terms of that. But maybe I need to get touched more. Maybe. Damn it.
Go back to holding hands.
Yeah. What about you, Robin? What's your love memories as a young boy?
Producer Robin.
I can say it's moments where everything kind of slows down for me, because me, I have a mind that's all the time all over the place, and it's more these moments where it slows down and I'm more in the observation and the appreciation of something, and it's more a feeling of like, and so I can feel this in different things. As a moment in my childhood, and I was saying this, I don't know why I can't put on anything. Is it sad?
No.
No.
I know, like, I have a lot of clients that struggle to connect memory to childhood, like, especially like that 0 to 7. Like, even when I'm thinking about it, I don't know how old I would have been, maybe 5, or I could have been older. Like, I could have been more like 8. Like, it's hard to remember that specific time, besides just like small snippets, and they're not always going to be about love. It might be like a birthday party or something, right, that you went to or had or whatever. Might unfold for you after.
But it's cool because you said like being in the place of like when things slow down, that's the idea of like where we call it like in the zone where you're in the corpus callosum, you're in the middle of the brain. Like when left brain and right brain are so balanced that it just everything settles into the place of the now, where time doesn't exist, reality kind of just slips away. It's just you're in the moment. So I think that's honestly where that we're talking about balance today. We're talking about coming into like the balance of the yin and the yang, the masculine, feminine, and that's like what I'm hearing is where you feel love is that place where everything is fully balanced. That place where you can just be, where there's presence, and just the frequency of presence, which is I think the frequency of love. So that's awesome. Yeah.
Excuse me.
I think that's what life like that's what life is. We talk about being in like so much in the now, in that present moment, where then life can come meet you, and then you can just feel all the sentient aspects of life, and that's what love, I think what the love of life. So maybe you're just, feeling it more as the love of life and coming from a certain person. Yeah.
Also, I feel like it's attached because what would be the meaning or any worth in life if there wouldn't be any love. In
Yeah.
it, right? Like it would be pretty sad. It makes sense to me that it's very tied together. Yeah.
It's so interesting that your love's related to time aspects, like
Yes.
fast pace versus slow.
It's because I think it's because, sorry, but I cut you.
No,
know.
you're good.
It's because I see the way I see love a lot is as I am like more in observation mode. Is I observe it not like it's not in the action. It's at a moment where I almost like stop and witness a moment or the emotion that is here. So the way it gets in my body and I actually like I'm aware of I'm feeling this emotion is only when I observe it, when I feel like that I appreciate something that I'm not necessarily in it, or even if I can be in it, but it's when I suddenly like I see it, I feel it, and I feel that when I feel the most this emotion, it's moment where I'm not necessarily like acting on something. It's where I'm just like soaking the moment, you know. So it's this is why I feel like there's this time thing, because most of the time where you're more in the action and it's for me it's related to this slow down where I'm just like soaking
You can
the
see it
moment
more. Yeah.
where time stops.
Time stops. Yeah, I think it's also as a last little minute note is I find it so interesting that everybody's going to have like their senses filtered with love, right? So I'm like, oh, this clairaudient, and kind of touch moment, and you were like, it was like all like this touch for you. Mara was like so much clairsentient, claircognizant, knowing. You even said, I see it, like I start to see the moment, or it slows down. So sentient, but also maybe clairvoyant with it. So I find that interesting as well.
I feel like I just want to offer, and we haven't done this yet, I don't think, but it feels like it's coming through pretty strongly because I can feel my brain getting scrambled again. Is just offering out like a prayer or an intention to anyone listening, is also like the collective as a whole, as to opening their perception and experience of love, because I think a lot of people, and not just humans, but plants and animals and nature, like that's sentient to me, can feel is feeling a little bit dark or like out of touch with love. So I would just love, and anyone listening, to invite you into creating this intention of like sending out this possibility of like,
Just changing the chemicals in your body.
yeah, and like love and understanding that there is love all around you, and allowing you to either hear it or see it or feel it or experience
Smell,
it,
taste.
smell it, taste it in a way that you're recognizing it as love.
I love that.
And that piece of, like Robin says, slowing down, so that if you are not sure where to find love, like find it in the flower, smell it.
And experience it
receive-
just with yourself.
Yeah, receive love from the scent of something, receive love from the color of something. Like how, if anything, how is nature loving you? And then expanding it from there. So we'll go back into like household tantra.
Yeah, and nature love reciprocity, so it likes to be appreciated. To stop and to savor those things. The beauty and wonder of something is the way that nature receives. Yeah,
Amazing.
thanks for letting me do that.
No, thank you.
Thanks, gals.
Thanks, love.
That's been the 3 fates this hour. Trust yourself.
Be yourself.
And love yourself.
Oh, it feels so good. Until next time. Bye,
We're the 3
everyone.
fates. Bye. Peace.